everyone, we got another Reggie video of Kenshi, and I have no idea what he's doing for this challenge. I know you're Japanese, Petra. You've told me this. I know, you've told me this. I know you're part Japanese. Okay, God Eater spin out, pretty much. Looks like a pin cushion, pretty much. And of course, sweetie, you can also come by. We have rain here now. The rain.
Replacement of Chrono.
Yeah, the replacement of Chrono.
I'm gonna grab his IQ and be like,
Yeah,
this is funny shit.
What you need to do is every time Chrono's not here, have a little model of yourself holding up a Chrono sock puppet. Just have like
I think we are planning to do that sock collab.
Yeah.
Sock!
I do have like a Muppet version of myself, so that could work.
I already have mine prepared a long time ago.
Yeah, we need to do that eventually. I don't know when we're gonna do it, but either Chrono or Platy is going to be accused for their crimes over on Guilty as Suck. Anyway. I'm gonna head to this and see where it goes.
Fellas, I have a confession to make. I'm a fraud. You see, my most recent video wasn't actually a Kenshi video. It wasn't even part of a deep state psyop either. It was a front for an elaborate data mining operation so that I could covertly collect your personal information. Information which I then forwarded to a professional portrait artist with instructions that he use this reference material to create a facial composite of each of you. Why would I do this? Because with these hyper-realistic portraits, I am now able to recreate your likeness on a perfect one-to-one scale in Kenshi. If you were one of the first 100 people to comment on my last video, then congratulations. You've just been drafted into this week's challenge, 100 Nobodies versus Kenshi. But it's not just Kenshi.
It's a bunch of sim characters.
I've carefully hundreds of mods to assemble the most dangerous and horrific Kenshi experience as God truly intended. And I'm not going to lie, most of you won't make it over this alive. In fact, look to the man on your left, then to the man on your right. Chances are, both of them will molest you as a coping mechanism from the stresses of this challenge. Let's begin.
That's irony again,
naked,
that's for sure.
Afraid, and undeniably grotesque, like 100 Benjamin Button babies.
100 Benton. That's a pretty accurate.
It's lore accurate. It's Attack on Titan for sure.
It's Attack on Titan. Is that what you said?
Yes. Attack on Titan.
Anyway. Yeah, they kind of do look like the Titans just a little bit. It's kind of horrifying.
We are born into this world. We have nothing outside of our combined biomass, but that just might be enough. Our goal for this playthrough is to migrate across the map to the Fog Islands, where we will establish a fully functional colony. Am I sure that's safe? No, it's definitely not safe, but the sooner you people start dying, then the less mouths I have to feed. Now, we need to get out of this unequivocal hellscape known as the swamp. Nothing good has ever happened here, and I hate it. But first, let's blend in with the locals by committing theft. I would like to adopt the playstyle of the Hungry Locust Swarm. We will ravage the countryside en route to our destination.
Good lord, how do you do all this? Thank you for the resale.
We managed to steal some basic supplies and a few food items. 3 fish split 100 ways? No problem. Unfortunately, my army of 100 naked thieves did not go unnoticed, and the police responded by shooting a harpoon directly into Laser Doksha's torso, killing him instantly. Luckily, the rest of us got away. We traveled west for all of 19 seconds before encountering our first nightmare creature. It was a blood spider that was so thick and girthy, it would be comical if it wasn't trying to fuck us all to death. We attempted to evade it by staying low to the ground and crying. This technique did not work. The spider chased us for about half a mile before one brave man decided to make the ultimate sacrifice. Damien Michels drew the spider's attention and led it away from our main group. We never saw him again after that, but he was kind enough to update his Facebook status several hours later. The journey was going well. We had almost made it out of the swamp entirely when we came across this abandoned settlement. It wasn't even marked on the map, and so I can only assume that it's from one of my mods. After some exploring, I came to realize
That's
that the base
possible.
was actually very well developed. It had
Oh.
significant power generation and farming
Wow.
infrastructure, as well as plenty of stockpiled supplies. We had a choice to make: loot the camp and proceed onward, or exercise our squatter's rights to legally claim it as our own. It's a dangerous world out there, so I decided to
God.
stay, at least until we could properly prepare for the rest of our journey. Like
All right,
100
then.
recovering drug addicts, we would use someone else's home until we could get back on our feet again.
Sounds
You may
like
call
it.
me a pussy for this decision, but let's get one thing straight. By my calculation, each one of you is burning approximately 1.5 nutrition per in-game hour. Multiply that
Okay.
by 100, and we need at least 150 nutrition each
Oh,
hour just to
that's a
maintain
lot.
our horrific physique. We are currently producing 0 nutrition per hour, meaning you will all be dead within 4 days.
Oh, no.
According to the dictionary, this qualifies as an emergency. And the first step
An
in any
emergency.
emergency situation, whether you're taken hostage or even on fire, is to drop to the ground and furiously begin digging for earthworms that you can use to
What?
sustain yourself. And that's just what we did.
What?
Because at this point, our main
Yeah,
enemy is
they're
not
digging
the
for
five-legged cannibals or the spanking
God.
robots. It's our own hunger. By dedicating approximately 90 people to earthworm duty, with perfect micromanagement, we could produce 180 nutrition per hour, thereby slowly accumulating a surplus of disgusting food. The remaining 8 people were in charge of looting the base for trade supplies. Altogether, we came back with steel bars and plenty of fuel. I sent this group on a trading
Okay.
mission to the nearest city to exchange our goods for the basic supplies that we would need to survive.
Oh
I
my
knew this
God.
would be a dangerous mission, and it didn't take long before we were approached by a gang of cosplayers.
What?
It is considered best practice to avoid these people at all costs, and fortunately we managed to evade them by taking a bath. Our trade caravan was nearly at Shark, but they ran into a parasitic blood spider who had
Oh.
a very strong opinion about eating us alive. Luckily, I had already prepared for this exact possibility. You see,
blood
out of
spider?
the 8 people in our caravan, I had only given 5 of them actual items to trade. The rest were expendable decoys that we could
Good
jettison
Lord.
in order to distract our attackers. Killer Kevin, Demigod Raymond, and Kappa the Kepo made the heroic decision to stay behind
Decision.
and engage in what could charitably be described as an unfair fight. You may consider this to be a dishonorable tactic on my part, but sometimes you must sacrifice the dick to save the balls. This
What?
is a philosophy you should become very comfortable
No.
with, because I have a lot of dicks. Thanks to this heroic sacrifice,
Good
our trade
Lord,
caravan made it to
Reggie,
Shark
why?
successfully, and we began acquiring the necessary supplies: medicine, building materials, research books, and a few backpacks. This was all we would need to evolve our civilization beyond large-scale bug eating. Fast forward a few minutes and the trade caravan had successfully made
Yeah.
it back to the base. The first move was to add some automation to this operation by strapping an old oil drum to Ben's back and filling it with food. I could then use a patrol mod to turn him into an ambulatory vending machine to feed my people. This is what
Oh.
progress really looks like. Now it's time to start setting up shop. As usual, we began with a rock mine. If your name is flashing on the screen right now, congratulations, you've just won a lifetime supply of hard labor. Technically, it's not slavery because I'm paying you with worms. Now, by
worms.
creating a rock mine, we had formally started a base. There's some good and bad news associated with this. On the good side, by creating a base, we were actually given functional ownership over all of the buildings and defensive structures here. We could even decide what to call our base. I named it after
Nice.
the most depraved and vile place I could think of: my Discord server. However,
Oh.
on the bad side, we would now appear on the
That's so
map, and
funny.
as soon as your base appears on the map, you're going to start getting visits from post-apocalyptic Mormons. This part of the game is not negotiable, but fortunately I had a plan. Kenshi designates your marker on the map not based on your first building, but rather based on the center of mass between all buildings in the settlement. For example, if I had a building here and another
That's interesting. So he can kind of abuse it and basically keep them off. Are you okay, Rain? Or did you fall asleep?
No.
She's alive!
Well,
I know.
why would I be falling asleep for?
I don't
So
know.
up. You so up.
You fall asleep a lot around my time, so I don't know.
Not anymore though.
And yeah, Big Mo Kid, if you're too tired, you don't have to join, but you can if you want to. Anyway. We're going to head into this and see how Reggie... I don't even know what his objective is here. To create a stable society? I'm kind of confused, honestly.
one here, the marker would go somewhere in the middle. and that's exactly where the raiders would
Okay.
arrive. So hypothetically, if I could develop a series of buildings
take a nap.
50
Okay,
miles
have
away,
a good
they could
nap.
act as a counterweight and effectively shift the map marker away from our actual base, thus making the Dust Bandits believe we lived somewhere in the middle of Detroit. This would allow us to continue
Later,
sucking
sweetie.
our thumbs and avoiding confrontation for at least a little while. But make no mistake, this would be a complex construction
Oh my
project.
God.
So I drafted 15 of you to become freelance engineers responsible for constructing decoy settlements all over the map. As you may expect,
cool.
the mortality rate for this occupation
Pretty
made
high.
Omaha Beach look like a LARP event. But after several days of watching you all be eaten by wildlife, we had successfully constructed 6 decoy towns to the northwest, thereby pulling our base's center of mass a safe distance away from us. Now
Nice.
look, I love spending 8 hours micromanaging pixels on a screen as much as the next guy, but it's time we get serious about this food operation. I decided to construct 20 extra large wheat farms, thereby
Okay.
allowing us to grow our food supply in a manner that didn't give me a brain aneurysm. You might think you've got it lucky out in the wheat fields, but in reality it's probably the worst job in the entire colony. Thanks to a mod I installed, weather is now randomized and twice as intense,
Oh,
meaning that
no.
one moment you could be out farming crops with the fellas, and the next a giant solar flare could evaporate your entire skeleton within seconds. It was not uncommon for me to find my wheat farmers
God.
reduced to scorched and twisted husks strewn about the fields, but it was necessary. It would take us about 2 days to complete our migration to the Fog Islands, and so we would need a lot of food for the journey. In addition to our wheat farming efforts, I also located several barrels of bananas and riceweed left behind by the previous owners. The upshot of
wow.
all of this was our kitchen was running overtime, and by day 20 we had accumulated a metric fuckload of bread. It is now time for us to begin our great migration. We set off for the Fog Islands. I wasn't entirely sure what to expect on this journey, but our attrition rate so far was only 16%,
Discord.
so I was feeling pretty confident. We traveled from the Grunge up the waterway and then directly into the Sten Desert with relatively few
Desert, huh?
casualties. We lost the occasional person to bone dogs and bad weather, but thanks to the power
God.
of teamwork and perseverance, we were able to continue our journey. We even ran into a giant horde of zombies, which you think would be a problem. However, they might be the only enemy in the entire game that we are actually capable of killing.
Really?
After performing several gang initiations on the zombies, we picked up their clothes and spare limbs. You may think that collecting your enemy's discarded limbs is
Well done.
weird or retarded,
Yeah, that's
but I'm here to
disgusting.
tell you that it's perfectly normal
That's actually
and very
disgusting.
nutritious.
Yeah.
We pushed onward, taking a brief rest stop in Admeg before ultimately traveling into Vane. It was here where we encountered our next nightmare creature. Honestly,
Okay.
I was hoping to avoid this one because it is
like a
undeniably the
train.
apex predator of Nightmare Kenshi. We tried to run, we tried to hide, but in reality, none can escape Thomas the Beak Thing.
What? What the hell?
In addition to Thomas, we
What
also
the
found
hell?
this fucking guy. Apparently, it's a pickaxe thing, because in case you were ever curious what it would feel like to be
the
murdered
hell?
by a gang of angry coal miners, now you can have your answer. Fucking thanks for installing that one, Reggie. Thanks, buddy. Fortunately, the pickaxe thing didn't seem to notice us, but Thomas, he was definitely coming to flatten our collective ball sack. He was at least 3 times as fast as us,
Ew.
and he was grinding us to dust beneath his malicious metal frame. I tried my usual trick of distracting him with 1 or 2 people, but he was such an unbridled killing machine that he would just massacre them and catch up to the main group again. It was at this point that I decided to split our group into 3 smaller
Thomas the Tank Engine just coming to crush you. I wonder if Chrono has played Choo Choo Charlie. No idea, but it's funny. The hell? What the hell am I watching?
groups, each going in different
Thomas
directions.
has some
Logically,
beef.
Thomas could only pursue
Seems like
one
it.
group at a time, and hopefully, by the time he had finished beating the ever-living shit out of them, the rest would be a safe distance away. Each group had about 25 people in it. Group A continued north, B went west, and C went east. Thomas decided to follow Group B, Fucking nice knowing you guys. Fortunately, the plan seemed to work. Group B was wiped out entirely, and somehow half of Group A also got fist fucked. I'm not really sure what happened there. Either way, the survivors were able to link up just outside the Fog Islands.
That's
at
good,
this
at
point,
least.
there was only 52 of us. If you are a part of this surviving group, congratulations. Natural selection has favored you thus far. You are
Good
the
Lord!
fastest, strongest,
kind of video
and
scare me.
smartest of your kind. Sure. 48% of your friends have been killed by a sentient train, but that's just more food for the rest of us. It is now time to construct our Fog Island colony. It needs to be large, safe, and above all else, visually pleasing. Normally, this would take a while to construct, but having 50 slave laborers sped things up quite a bit. We ran
Nice.
into a few complications during construction, but when you think about it, premature death is really just an anagram for theater-era ape rape with a couple extra letters.
What?
That doesn't sound so bad now, does it?
No,
So we had a
what?
couple ape rapes, but
Oh
by
my
day
God.
25, we had finished construction. It's a fairly simple design. I was inspired by non-Euclidean geometry and crumpled up pieces of paper. After that traumatizing episode of
God.
Thomas the Beak thing, I also decided to add in an
Rain, do you know what non-Euclidean geometry is? I think she's out of it now. I think she's gone. After watching Thomas the Tank Engine murder thing. For those who don't know, non-Euclidean geometry basically means it doesn't curvature to the Earth itself. Funny enough, all of our constructions is Euclidean. Basically means because it all curves to the Earth. Because, you know, that's how we build things.
array of panic rooms that we could take shelter in, just in case he decided to come back. Now you may wonder, why don't we have any farms in this new base? The answer is simple. I don't believe in farming. I don't mean in a moral or environmental sense. I'm saying I don't think it's real. You really expect me to believe that this came from this? Then just answer me one question. Where is all the dirt? I asked this exact question to the Department of Agriculture, and I just want to say that their silence has been deafening. In conclusion, I respect you all too much to feed you these synthetic femboy hormones. Luckily, I have an alternative food source lined up for us. But first, some people need to die. You see, the main issue living in the Fog Islands is that you will routinely be harassed by large groups of sex offenders. For most people, this would be a problem, but for us, it is an opportunity. If we could find a way to convert fogmen into a source of food, then their daily raids would essentially become pizza delivery, but with more steps. In order to achieve this, I have constructed an entire mega factory dedicated to processing fogmen into dog food. By harvesting their normally inedible meat and feeding it into my canning machines, we now have access to a high quality and estrogen-free food supply. With a little peeling, we can also process their limbs. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We are, for the most part, still a bunch of useless dickheads. How could we possibly hope to commit fogmen genocide? I'll tell you how. Cannonballs.
What?
This is a cannon turret. It is a very high damage and long-range defensive weapon. The main drawback is that it almost always misses its target. Normally, this would be an issue, but perhaps you are familiar with the phrase accuracy through volume. By installing 30 turrets along the perimeter of our base, we could massacre the fogmen before they even got close to the gate. Following this, we send out the cleanup crew to collect our meat, process it into dog food, and incinerate the leftovers. It is a foolproof utopian society that we are all lucky to be a part of. After several weeks of slaughtering the locals, I was actually starting to feel bad for them. They were up against an unstoppable military-industrial complex, and their very nature prevented them from resisting this perfectly baited trap. But then I remembered that, much like insurance agents, fogmen are not real people, and they don't have rights. I stood firm in my convictions that we were doing the right thing. In fact, Earl Nightingale once said that success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal.
He did.
Honestly, I couldn't think of a more worthy ideal than this. You and the boys, out in the field, blasting.
Oh my god. I guess this is where the end is now. I was gonna say language parasites because I'm... Oh my god, you were going to talk about language parasites because you've been playing Phantom Pain? Don't get too far into that game, it'll make you go insane. Language parasites is an interesting idea. It's also completely insane. Anyway.
bowling ball-sized holes in a bunch of feral cannibals, processing them into a fine puree, and just chillin', certainly that makes us greatly successful people.
I guess
now,
so.
we can all go to our high school reunions with a sense of pride, because we are not that penis pump guy anymore. Now,
my
we
God.
are that guy that
what
eats
the
dog
hell?
food. I would
Yeah, I
consider
don't
this
know.
a substantial upgrade. With that, I feel as though we have
Ew.
finally reached
Yeah.
the end of our challenge.
I'm glad you
Our base
played it.
is safe, relatively
Look at
self-sufficient,
that as
and
Attack on
I
Titan
think it's pretty
reference.
cool. 100
God.
Nobodies versus Nightmare Kenshi. Total attrition rate about 50% by day 30. I hope you guys
50%.
enjoyed this challenge. I already have another video in the works. Thanks for watching.
Well then, I think that's Rain's first Reggie video. I'm not sure. What did you think, Rain?
Horrifying, terrifying. It also reminds me of that old sim videos that people used to make.
Kenshi is one of those games that you really can do anything in it if you, well, do your own thing. But yeah. This ain't a funny video. Alright, we'll look at that one next. Anyway, thank you all so much, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.